Sure,
motif.
sure. Hi, we're just almost on. A few more seconds.
We've been listening to Carlo Bisozzi's Oboe Concerto No. 1 in C, played by Anthony Camden with the City of London Sinfonia, conducted by Nicholas Ward. And the time is coming up to 8:30, and sitting across from me in the studio is Howard Elias. Good morning.
Good morning. It was dark when I woke up. Well, I guess
yeah,
for you it's dark every day.
Yeah, I'm up at 3.
But yeah, it was dark.
So,
I don't like waking up when it's
dark.
dark.
I don't notice. I don't even know what the weather's like, because even when I'm in the studio early, it's still dark outside, and then the studio has no windows, so I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, this is for those who've never seen the studio. It's lovely. But yeah, no windows. Well, it has glass right there, but it just looks into the other studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've given a description of where we are, and you can see some of it in the background on your Facebook Live.
On my Facebook Live, yeah. Mm-hmm. Are we going to get a logo behind my head?
Yes, we will. We're going to arrange something.
Good. Okay.
Maybe a picture of me.
Oh, that'll drive the viewers to this, that's for sure.
Okay. Right, so one film that you're going to talk about today, and that is a biographical drama about Jean-Luc Godard.
Yeah, well, it's funny you called it a biographical drama, because I met with the director, Michel it's so hard to say his name, Hazanavicius, who also made the wonderful film, the Oscar-winning film, The Artist. Did you see The Artist?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you got to see it. Very good film from
Look that one up.
2011.
Let me
I think it was
write it down.
2011, 2014. I can't remember when it was. A few years back. Wonderful film. So he was in town last week to promote his latest film called Redoutable. Do you know what the word redoubtable means?
Not really.
No, I have to look it up. It's a real word in English. It means like formidable.
Oh, okay.
But the name of the film comes from a French nuclear submarine from, I guess, the 50s or the 60s or whatever, called Le Redoutable. So that's where the name of the film comes. So he was in town last week to promote this film, and I had the pleasure, the honor of meeting with him and talking to him about this film. So he would not call this film a what'd you call it? Well, basically a biopic. A biographical drama. Certainly, Internet Movie Database calls it a biographical comedy drama, but I would have called it a pastiche, because it's made to look like a Jean-Luc Godard film. But even he wouldn't call it a pastiche. He would call it a variation on a theme.
I should get some music out.
Oh, okay. You go
Let me
get
see
some
if I
music.
can
Yeah.
find a variation on a theme.
Now, so I mentioned Jean-Luc Godard, and you were saying you've never seen any of his films.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, basically, if you think about it, a lot of the more famous ones were done very early.
In the 60s, yeah.
And I was only an infant.
An infant. You were in diapers.
And then French
Well,
films,
I was in diapers.
Yeah, I was still in diapers, too. You're older than I am. Okay, and besides, well, anyway, so I kind of like missed the boat on this, and unless someone probably would have introduced it to me at university or something like that, then I would have gone to a retrospective or something like that, but I haven't.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Look, I've only ever seen one of Godard's films, and I fell asleep through it. So.
Did you fall asleep through this one?
No, I didn't actually. Okay. No. So, but I have to say, I'd say few people have had as much influence on contemporary filmmaking as Jean-Luc Godard. And when he had his first breakthrough film in 1960 called Breathless, since that time he shaped the way we see the world on the screen. He changed the language of cinema, and he's inspired generations, that's with an S on the end, of filmmakers that came after him, including the likes of Martin Scorsese, Steven Soderbergh, Jim Jarmusch, Bernardo Bertolucci, and even Hong Kong's Wong Kar-wai, among others. And as part of what was called the Nouvelle Vague movement, called New Wave movement, he broke with classical French filmmaking of that time. And his style was to have what are called jump cuts. Do you know what jump cuts are?
Jumping from one cut to another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here we have one scene, and then all of a sudden, there's another.
Yeah, sort of.
I would imagine. Well, what is it?
Okay, so it's basically tilting the camera just, I think, a few degrees and shooting the scene again. And what it's supposed to connote is the passage of time. So rather than having, let's say, two people in a car having a conversation, and their conversation might go over a period of hours, he would film it for a minute and snippet of conversation, then tilt the camera a little bit and continue filming. And so it puts into your head, oh, time has passed. And you notice that it's a slightly different film angle, but that's called a jump cut.
Okay.
It was just a method. It had been used before, but he really popularized it.
Okay.
He also had very long takes. He had references to other films. He had what I would call nudity for the sake of nudity. And he had character asides, which I don't think anybody ever really did before, where the character breaks the fourth wall and starts talking to the audience. And even his use of film stock and lighting were innovative. So if you think this sounds a lot like Quentin Tarantino, you would be correct, right? So this is exactly Quentin. So you see who Quentin Tarantino is influenced by.
And
right?
I have seen his movies.
Right.
Okay.
So now you have new respect for Jean-Luc Godard,
yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
I'm fascinated, and we'll do more research and see if I can find some of his films.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
Intriguing.
but in 8 short years, so from 1960 to 1968, he made 15 films, and most, if not all of them, have been hailed as critical masterpieces. And I actually slept through, as I said, I slept through one of them. So that's my claim to fame. That's my connection to Godard. But in May 1968, France was a land of turmoil. There were demonstrations, there were general strikes, student occupations. It sounds like something that happened here a couple of years ago with Occupy Central. And the country ground to a halt. Godard, whose films had always had a political bend to them, he moved even further to the left. So he was always leftist, but then he became like really far left, to the point of turning his back on his earlier work and that of his Nouvelle Vague colleagues. And he joined up with a young Maoist student named Jean-Pierre Gorin to make 5 more films that had very strong Maoist messages to them. And it's this tempestuous period of Godard's life that this film has covered. So that's why I had this whole introduction with Godard, because I wanted to set the stage. If you didn't know that, you just put some context into this film.
Absolutely.
All right? So I'm not wasting anybody's time here. Now, this film, Redoutable, let's use the English word, Redoutable, is based on the 2015 memoir called Un an après, 1 year later, by French actress and novelist Anne Wiazemsky, who was married to Godard for a very short period of time. And what Hazanavicius does in this film, he's mixed fact with fantasy to retell their relationship. So the film starts off, he's just finished the film La Chinoise, the 1967 film, which she starred in. He's just finished the film. It did not impress the Chinese very much. They did not like the film at all, and he was a little hurt by that. So, as I said, he had just married Wiazemsky. She was 20, he was 37. It was his second marriage. His first wife was also much younger than him. That was also his MO. He married women who were very, very young and compared to him. And so it takes place in 1968, where France is in this turmoil, and he's becoming more Maoist, and it shows basically the falling apart of their relationship. She does love him, but she doesn't like him. It's very interesting. And if you've seen the film, I'm trying to remember Le Mépris, the Contempt. It's very reminiscent of that story. So it's like almost life imitating art, that where the director, well, in the case of Contempt, the screenwriter and his wife have a falling out, and same thing. She loves him, but she doesn't like him.
What effect did she have on his work?
Well, she only starred in 2 of his films. They were married for 12 years, but they separated after just 3. So I don't know that she had a huge influence on him. But I understand they remained friendly for the remainder of her life. She just passed away a few weeks ago, apparently. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. So when she wrote this book a couple years ago, this is what Hazanavicius told me, that quite a few directors contacted her because they wanted to make a film out of it. And she kept saying, no, 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 no. And when he contacted her, she also said no. And he said he had a Columbo moment with her, where she was about to put down the phone, and he said, "Oh, by the way," is that what Columbo used to say? "Oh, by the way," or just one more thing? I can't remember what Columbo's tagline was.
I think it was just one more.
Just one more thing. And he said, "I find your story to be quite funny, quite humorous." And she went, "Really? So do I." And she said to him, no one had said that to her before. And with that, she agreed. Right? So he said it was almost like he didn't get it, and the last second he did get the rights to the book. So he said he saw the humor in their relationship that no one else saw. So what he's done in this film, in this pastiche or variation on a theme, whatever you want to call it, he's modeled the film as if it was a Godard film. So there are jump cuts, there are long takes, there are references to other films, there's nudity for the sake of nudity, there's character asides, he's used different film stock, or at least he makes it look like he probably makes it look like he's used different film stock. I don't think he really did. There's very interesting camera angles. There's the use of lighting, because also Godard used to shoot in very low light. And there's a lot of use of primary colors, red, yellow, blue. Very, very sort of stark images of those colors. There's even a running gag concerning Godard, the actor who plays Godard, where Godard wears these tinted lenses, tinted glasses. So there's a running gag throughout the film where the glasses keep breaking. And that may be connected to a character in the film, La Chinoise, who wears different sunglasses throughout the film. So he's really done a few nods and winks to Godard. Now, when the film was announced that Hazanavicius would be making this film, in Godard's style, Godard, who's now 87, he's still alive. People think he must be dead, right? But he's still alive. He's still making movies. Apparently, he's making a movie now. Godard himself called it a stupid idea. So he's quoted as saying, "This is really a stupid idea." And there was concern that the famous director might use some of his influence to get the film's premiere at Cannes. It premiered just this past May at Cannes. So there was this concern that Godard might use his influence to get the film pulled. But he didn't. The film did play. And very interesting, there's an amusing, very, very amusing scene in this film where Godard and Wiazemski and some of their friends head to Cannes. This is in 1968. They head to Cannes to shut the festival down. So this is why people were saying, "Oh, he's going to do it again," right?
And do we know what he said about it?
Well, so I asked him that. So I asked him, I said, "So what has Godard said about your film?" And he says, as far as he knows, he hasn't seen it yet. So maybe he does, or if he has seen it, he's been quiet, which is maybe not saying anything is an indictment, or maybe he's just said he's not going to see it. Now, as far as people who have seen the film has played. He said, of course, it's played in France and a few markets in Europe. He wasn't sure if it's played in America yet, but it opened here last Thursday. He says Godard dogmatists, I call them the fan club, he calls them dogmatists, he's much more polite than I am. So he says Godard dogmatists have taken exception to the film. They don't like that they're criticizing it. Hazanavicius is criticizing or making light of their demigod. Right? And on the other side of the equation, you have people who, like you and me, who are less familiar with Godard's work, they find the film amusing, and I'm in this camp as well. You find the film amusing, but you say, well, what's the point? And I walked out going, all right, I liked it, but so what? Right? So I think this film is really struggling to find its audience, because there's the group that venerates Godard who hate the film, and there's the people who don't know Godard and they're going, okay, it's all right. So he's I don't know that the film's been terribly successful around the world. Now, as far as Wiazemski goes, I did ask him the question, has she seen the movie? And he says yes. He said she was lovely to work with. He said he didn't have a strong relationship with her. He only knew her for a short period of time. And he said that she really she took a step back. After she sold him the rights, she did not get involved in the production at all. He said because she knows, like she lived with a director, and she's been in the film world. She knows not to mess with an artist, so to speak. So he said she was wonderful. He said that she did see the movie. She saw it 4 times, and she said that he really captured the spirit of what she wrote. So she was very pleased with the book. So in that respect, with the film, yeah. So he was quite happy with it. So I'd say, all in all, as I said, if you're familiar with Godard's work, if you're not familiar with Godard's work, this is a safe introduction to his work. It might make you want to check him out. Mm-hmm. If you are familiar with his work and you love him, you venerate him, you might be a little upset. But it is humorous. I think the acting is very good. It's the fellow who plays Godard. His name is I remember his last name, Louis Garrel, and he's a young French actor. And interestingly, Garrel's father is director Philippe Garrel, who is a contemporary of Godard. So I asked Hazanavicius, I said, well, the actor Louis Garrel must know Godard quite well and know all his ins and outs, his character quite well. He says he actually never met him. His father certainly knew him, but he had never met him. But he said there's so much on the internet, so many interviews with Godard on the internet, and so much footage that he was able to capture Godard's, his cadence of his language, and he has this sort of a slight lisp when he talks, and a lilt to his inflection, and he captured that really well. He says he's a very good mimic, this actor. So he said he was really pleased with Louis Garrel's work. And then the woman who plays Wiazemsky is Stacey Martin. It's funny, she's got such an English name, but she's French. I think she grew up in England, though. She was in the film series Nymphomaniac, which came out last year.
I haven't seen it.
No. I liked her. I thought she was good. So as far as the acting goes, and of course it also includes Hazanavicius' wife, Berenice Bejo. She was in The Artist, and she's in all of his films, or I think most of his films, and she's in this film as well. So he always includes her in his films. So acting wise, I thought it was good. I think it's a well-made film, but as I said, I think it's struggling to find its audience. So did you want to say something? I saw you sort of giving me... No.
Yeah. I just wanted to know about the acting, yeah.
Yeah,
because you
hadn't gotten there.
Yes,
yeah.
But we did.
Yeah. So, you know what, I'd give this like 7 out of 10. I hate giving scores, but, it's...
7's pretty high.
Okay, maybe 6.5 out of 10. No, I liked it, and, maybe it'll spur me to watch more of Godard's films and hopefully not fall asleep through them.
Well, you've done that for me. I will.
Oh, okay, yeah, go see him. Look, there's an article on the internet that talks about these 15 films that he made between 1960 and 1968, and it says which ones, it ranks them and says which ones you should see first, and you can find some of them out there. Mm-hmm. So go see them.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Have it, Elias.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, see you.